Welcome to the Hopeful Journey. My name is Bill Fix, and I'm the senior pastor of Taylor Journey of Hope Community Church. We're glad that you tuned in today. Our guest is from Taylor, and she is Simone Calvis. She is a busy wife and the mother of 6 children. She is a community organizer and director of the Taylor Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force. Hi, Simone.
Hello, Pastor Bill.
Welcome to the show. We're glad that you're here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Simone, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became involved with the task force.
I actually came aboard as a community organizer back in 2012. Prior to that, I was a probation officer at the 19th District Court and became very involved in looking at the trends of the youth involved in drugs, which made me very apprehensive as to what I could do. So then the opportunity came about to take a position as a substance abuse prevention counselor. Here I am today.
Wow, that's great. Tell me how the task force began.
The task force actually began by a mother who lost her child to a drunk driver back in 1990. And what we did is we formed different sectors of the community to make more of a community awareness program, just involving the community.
I've enjoyed the work of the task force, and I know that we do a lot of wonderful things in the community, and you're the director of this group. And one of the things that we've done is we have a prescription take-back program, a drop-off. Tell the studio audience a little bit about that.
A prescription take-back was actually, it's a program that we do bi-yearly with the DEA. We have 3 take-back boxes. I am actually a community organizer of 3 downriver communities, Lincoln Park, Taylor, and Ecorse. Taylor primarily being number 1 and the biggest community with a huge transition. So we wanted to find a way to get the drugs off the street as much as we could. The biggest culprit, unfortunately, is are your prescription drugs at home. Nowadays, we are very apt to having a pill to be happy, sad, ill, pain, no pain. It's become a trend in our community. So there are many prescription drugs that are not utilized, and the doctor will re-prescribe something else, take you off the existing medication, and people tend to just leave them in their medicine cabinets where youth are able to access.
Wow, so they steal them or they take them?
Yes, they do. Also, people that want to get rid of their drugs don't have any means of doing it safely. We tended to flush them down the toilets, put them in the sinks. Well, that's now contaminating our waters and our landfills. So we're trying to make a safe, easy environment for people to learn how to get rid of their prescription drugs safely.
Where are some of these locations where people can just drop their prescription drugs in the Taylor area?
We have a permanent drop box at Taylor Police Department that the task force actually and the Rotary paid for. They are expensive boxes. It's there 24 hours a day. The police station is open 24 hours a day. You can just go to the police department and drop your meds off.
In the last drop that we had, when we had a day where people could just drop their medications off if they wanted to, how many pounds, or how do you measure all of that?
Well, the DEA picks it up at the end of the day. We have the prescription take-back day twice a year from 10 till 2. The last one that we had, we picked up over 215 pounds of meds from Taylor.
You're kidding. That's a lot of medication.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And the nice thing is that people that were not aware that we had a take-back box now know where to come and drop their meds off safely.
Well, that brings me to the next question that I have. One of the things I think the task force does very, very well is to educate. And our education goes out to the public in the paper in different ways, but we need to educate even those who sell alcohol and tobacco and other products that our kids are getting a hold of. And how do you do that education of those? Do you get them all in a room? Or?
It is a huge task. First of all, making parents aware, I think, has been the most problematic issue for us. Education. Our youth know more about meds and internet than we do, so we always have to try and keep ahead of the trend. Our task force has been amazing. I've done so much. We do each year, we do different segments of things. We go to each gas station to find out, to give them tobacco awareness to selling to minors. We issue them programs of, and then we go back and we do checks with the police department. We look at the trends of drinking. We look at the data all the time. We're constantly following. We actually wrote letters to give to all our local businesses, our hotels, our limousine companies, telling them their liabilities, what we expect from them, what would happen if they were caught with allowing youth to access alcohol. And times are actually changing, Pastor. People are becoming more aware of liability. It's a huge factor. And just keeping a close eye with our task force and community members and the police department, we are able to go into liquor stores, and they may not like us, but at least they know our presence is there.
A lot of parents like to have their children at home, and so they would open their home, have a party, invite other kids there. Sometimes the parents stick around, sometimes they don't. Explain what the liability of doing something like that is if alcohol is present or someone brings in alcohol. Even the parents do not supply it, but some child or some teenager brings it in.
Huge liability on all sectors. It's illegal. Legally, you're obligated to protect a child. So you have different enforcements that are there. If you're caught with children in your house drinking alcohol, it's an automatic misdemeanor. We've had situations where we've had pill parties where the youth are not only accessing alcohol in people's houses. See, the problem has been parents think that by their teenagers, accessing alcohol and drugs in the house is safer than being out in the community. That is not true. You have other children in your house, that's a liability. If anything happens to one of those children, you could be brought to manslaughter charges. I mean, you have to be aware. It's a very dangerous situation. Nowadays, the youth are actually putting pills into a bowl and just randomly taking pills with alcohol, not really knowing what the pills are for. Huge ramifications, liabilities, lawsuits. You can lose your home, you can lose your businesses, but more importantly, we lose our youth.
Right. When we educate the parents and educate the vendors, those who sell alcohol and tobacco products and other things, how are we educating the teenagers themselves?
We have a lot of programs in Taylor schools where, and we also have youth coalitions. We send messages through Prom Pledge. We just finished 2 of the Prom Pledges at the high schools, which were, I feel they're very effective. Where, everybody's in denial. That's half the problem. Everybody's in denial. We need to sit down and we need to talk with our students. We need to talk. Parents need to talk to their students. Parents need to talk to their families. We need to spend more one-on-one time. But what is very important, and we've kind of steered away, is the time that we spend in the church. Our faith is kind of pushed to the side, and we need to go back to our grassroots. We need to build our coalitions. That's why we're lucky that we have our sectors, we have our faith-based coalitions, our youth coalitions. We sit down and we educate together. Every day I learn something new. Every day.
How do we get into the churches and get them involved in all of this? How can we do that?
There is your local organizations. We always are affiliated with the church in our areas. Gladly they can call me or email me to become involved with the task force, to become involved at a more faith-based ministerial alliances. There's so many different options.
we need to do a better job. The churches need to get outside the doors, get out into, and to be aware of the problems and become more proactive. I'd like the church to be reversed a little bit
Yes.
and be in the community a lot more.
And we talked about that last year. We talked about doing more, our coalition coming into the churches, and especially in the summer, which is a very dangerous time. Students, they've got so much free time on their hands. It would not be nice if we could get more programs involved in the churches where we can educate substance abuse and at the same time teach them hands-on different, like cooking, easy things that come into life every day.
Exactly. We had about 25 pastors and churches come together at the community college there in Taylor. And I think that was an effective way of just making them aware of some of the problems that we have.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
It humbled me.
It was really good. And so I'm glad that we're trying to get the education portion of this out there. So we're doing more and more with the students, with the parents, with the vendors, just with everyone. Tell me a little bit. You mentioned it about the limo drivers and all of that. Is the laws changed or what is what?
We are pushing for change in the laws, but actually I'm very impressed. The limousine companies are actually starting to take responsibility. One of the buses that had students on it going to their prom, they were warned via letter not to have any alcohol. And while they went into the restaurant, the driver has the right to go through your stuff, found alcohol. He dispersed everything from the party bus, all their personal belongings, put them on the side of the curb, and left.
Wow.
I think that sets the message.
I think so too. That's a good thing that happened there.
They don't like us.
Well, we're in the school system quite a bit, and how do we work? Do we work with counselors in the school system, or teachers, or the administration? How do we?
We are very fortunate that we have a great team. We're actually part of Taylor Teen Health Center too, so we have our counselors there, social workers. We work with coordinating agencies like Community Care Services, Wayne Metro, Hagira. We all join forces to see how we can push forward and show and push programs in. We do everything we can in the schools.
That's great. I'm glad that we're in the schools. They're cooperating. How about the authorities, the police?
The police have their hands full. As you know, that the numbers are down for policing. The problem really is, pastors, that we're trying to keep up with the trends. And with the internet, as much as it is a wonderful thing, at the same time, it has been a huge demon for us. You know, there's so many drugs that are coming through. Heroin, we now have a huge epidemic downriver with heroin. So students, teachers, are trying to collaborate together to make, people aware of the heroin epidemic. The youth coalitions, we're really emphasizing, because we've lost so many students in Wyandotte to heroin overdoses. The problem is it's so cheap. So a dime bag of heroin is now $5.
Wow.
Where a Vicodin off on the street is around $15 to $20. So, they're thinking it's the same kind of situation. The problem is the heroin is laced with fentanyl and other synthetic drugs. And we actually have a ban, as you know. We worked very diligently to get the ban in Taylor and Lincoln Park. They were the two first cities to ban synthetic drugs. Wonderful.
We have a great task force there in Taylor. Just tell me a little bit about the makeup of that task force. Who is on it? How many? Where they come from?
We have approximately 22 members, and we're lucky. We have the creme de la creme. Very dedicated task force. We have government. We have judicial. We have ministerial. We have all the sectors, parents, doctors. Again, being fortunate enough that we are with Oakwood, so we have that affiliation. The Taylor Public Schools, counselors, social workers, we have the whole spectrum, even owners of businesses.
That's great. And it continues to grow. Seems like more and more people want to be a part of this, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing for the task force to be large, and because numbers really, that's what we need to get out into the community to make a difference.
There's a lot of work to do, yes.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
We'll come back in a few minutes, but we've been talking to Simone Calvis from Taylor Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force, and she is going to be coming back and tell you about some of the trends that we're seeing in the drug abuse, and also we're going to be giving some pointers to parents on what you can look for and how you can determine whether or not your child is experimenting or using drugs. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Hopeful Journey. Today we have Simone Calvis in our studio, and we're outside today enjoying the weather. It's beautiful here at the LBN studios, and we welcome you back to the second part of our program today. Simone, I was thinking about the ramifications of a young person becoming addicted to drugs at a young age, say 16, what the far-reaching effect of that is. Would you just speak to that for a moment?
Unfortunately, I've seen very many tragic cases. There are many different spectrums to substance abuse, jail time, death. I think the worst thing of all is the total devastation on the family. I mean, just to try and get your child, to seek help for your child, legal fees are astronomical. Just your whole world changes, and so does the family. I mean, it just becomes just self-destruction all around. I've seen many divorces through substance abuse, bankruptcy, parents trying to help their children, keep them out of jail, when sometimes, unfortunately, the answer may be to go to jail and understand what's going on. It's a very, very difficult time for the family. Looking at the peers too. I mean, so much pressure on the rest of the children. They're learning poor habits. With the increase of marijuana, there's been far more catastrophes through families. We have students coming to class, the permeating the smell of marijuana, of THC on them. It's terrible. There's never a good thing when it comes to drugs, never.
The legalization of marijuana really did not help our cause, and the availability of marijuana for young minors is just it's easy for them to get that.
Well, marijuana is next door. Unfortunately, in a lot of the apartment complexes, we've managed to put in a bylaws and to say that they cannot grow because it's dangerous. I mean, there's so much electricity that's used. People don't, when you're farming the marijuana, there's a lot of liability and a lot of danger that we're trying to make people publicly aware of. A lot of people thought that having farms would be a quick, rich way to be a millionaire. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So we managed to put some little clauses in the leases, and it's worked. We've got rid of quite a few of the farms in the apartment complexes, which is important. But unfortunately, marijuana is a gateway. So once the effects of the marijuana are no longer required or are not enough, those kids are looking for another high, and that's what we're trying to stop.
Yes. Help is sometimes called hope. H-O-P-E. And we have hope for this younger generation that's growing up, and we're trying to reverse the trend. Do you have any hopeful statistics for us? Anything that we can cling to?
We need to become, unfortunately, Pastor, nowadays it takes two parents to work to keep a family. We need to find time to be a family, to go to our grassroots, to, enjoy community, enjoy your church together, even if it's an hour or two a week. I have an extremely busy schedule. I have 6 children.
Right.
But we always have dinner together. 2 reasons. First, it's our only time we can really be together. Secondly, my children always tell stories on each other. So, I think it's a very important time to converse, to, sit down and talk together.
And we don't see that in the home
We
today. And
don't.
we don't, most homes eat at different times, and kids eat different meals, and it's sad because the family meal did bring the family
Absolutely.
together, and we could hold our children more accountable. Would you give parents an idea of what to look for? I mean, if they're concerned about their teenager, their teenager saying, I'm not doing that, but I know people who are. How can we be sure that our children are not getting
Well,
involved in drugs?
if you're talking about me as a parent, on my counter in the kitchen is a drug test kit, and every time my my teenagers go past that kitchen counter, they know that I can drug test them at any time. You don't want to put that kind of fear in them, but I think it just makes them more aware that we will find out what's going on. You need to educate, talk to your children, sit down and just tell them the ramifications. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to listen because they're young, they're vulnerable, the peer pressure is incredible. There are many things you can look for: bloodshot eyes, lethargic, mood swings, their eating habits. These are just erratic behavior. The internet can be your friend too, as well as theirs. You can look up many of the symptoms and get a rough idea of what you're seeing in your child. Always be aware of your child's behavior patterns: missing school, taking time off school, how they function with the family. When do their moods change? Is it in the evening? Is it during the day? You constantly have to be aware of what's going on with them. Who are their friends?
Right. I think that's a good indicator.
Who are their friends? Unfortunately, Pastor, our children are bored. You will hear that time and time again. I'm bored. Why, as a probation officer, it used to be my number one question. Why? Give me an essay. Tell me why. Always the same answer: I'm bored. Our organizations, our church organizations, we don't spend enough time at church. There's many things to do in church.
There are.
And they're free.
Mm-hmm.
It don't cost you anything. It doesn't have to be an after-school activity. You can go to your church and become involved in your community, and it's so fulfilling. That's why I always, as a probation officer, my big goal was to always give community service. And I wouldn't really give them options. I would send them to churches, to work, to see a family environment. Because sometimes, unfortunately, these children don't have that.
They don't have a role model.
They don't.
No
have
one
a
to
role
look up
model.
to. And that's a biggie, I think, in the reason for them to experiment and to look for love in all the wrong places, and that's what they're doing.
Yes.
And what are some of the trends that you're seeing? I know the interstate is a friendly thing for a highway, but it's not a friendly thing for drug trafficking, and we're seeing a big problem with drug trafficking on some of the interstate highways. And just explain what's happening in the trends and what you're seeing. What are kids doing now? You mentioned that they're pill popping at parties, and they don't even know what these drugs are. They just drink and take drugs. And what else is happening?
Oh boy. Well, we have hookah bars now that a lot of our teenagers are attending. We've banned cigarettes, but we're allowing hookah. So, and taking one puff of hookah is equivalent to 10 cigarettes.
Wow.
So, we're looking at the ramifications of that. We work very closely with Access in Dearborn, who give us, I don't know much about hookah, so I rely on their expertise in that area. E-cigarettes, we have children going into school puffing on e-cigarettes. Again, a very dangerous puffing going into your lungs, carcinogens. Hookah pens, same thing. Synthetic drugs, again, huge, but number one, unfortunately, is heroin. It's rife. It's an absolute epidemic. And prescription drugs.
How do we stop that? How do we turn the corner on the drugs that are so readily available to our young people?
Do not allow your drugs to be in a cabinet which is accessible to youth. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of who your children are with. Join a task force. Do things for the community. Work with the community. We cannot do this on our own.
Mm-hmm.
The police department cannot do it. It has to be a unified team. We have to work together and just, the best we can do, just keep educating and watching our surroundings.
And you can't continue to be an absentee parent. You have to be there for your kids. You have to be involved in the school system. You have to know what's going on, and you have to get to know your kids' friends. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I think just
Absolutely.
involvement.
And you know what? The big mistake that a lot of parents do is they want to be their child's friend. To a degree, that's okay, but don't mistake being a friend and being a parent. It's okay if you're a strict parent and your child doesn't like you right now. They'll love you. They love you anyway.
I respected my parents. I never wanted to disappoint my parents. They obviously loved me. I knew they loved me because of their provision, because they told me often, because they did things with me. I never wanted to disappoint them, but it seems like we've lost that in this generation, where there's a lot of kids that just don't have that relationship with mom and dad.
Again, Pastor, we're at the point where two parents have to work. Children don't want a soccer ball to play anymore. They want a game, an electronic game. It costs hundreds. I mean, if we retracted all of that, then I think and went back to our basics, which we know is not going to happen. So at least make, simple plans, like every Sunday have dinner together, and it's mandatory to sit at a table together one day of the week. Everybody has a busy schedule. I understand that, but take that time.
One of the things that we did in our family was we had family meetings.
Yeah.
We would all get together and we'd discuss some of the chores that had to be done at the house. We also would discuss our vacations that are coming up. I think if you put something before your children that they're really looking forward to, always have something on the calendar, it'll be a big plus for your relationship with them. Talk about it, plan with them, get them excited. That's a parent's job.
Absolutely.
And parents are not doing that job very well any longer, at least some parents, the majority.
It's easier to give your child an electronic game.
It is.
And to sit in front of the television and to sit down and converse. You don't have time. You have to make the time.
Exactly.
It will make a huge difference.
Exactly. I want you to look into the camera and just tell our churches, mostly pastors and churches are going to be watching this, and parents, tell them what they can do to help.
I would love for our Ministerial Alliance to get together once a month to come up with some plans for each church. I am here. I'm accessible. Any questions that you have, please contact me. I want to clean this world. I have 6 children to bring up in this community, and I want them to be safe, as well as all the other children. So please just reach out. I'm here.
How can they get a hold of the task force if they'd like to? Is there a number
We
or
have
is there a website?
Yeah, we have my cell phone number is directly to me. My number is 313-733-7704, or you can contact me via email at taylortaskforce@gmail.com.
That's wonderful. You don't mind them calling you on your cell phone?
No, I'm there. I'm accessible 24/7.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I've often heard you say that drug abuse really is not the problem, that all of these things that kids are getting into and getting into trouble are just a symptom of what the real problem is. And the real problem is what?
We need to go back to our roots, go back to our faith.
Faith is very important.
Yes.
The title of this program is called Hopeful Journey. And I really believe that we are on a hopeful journey. We hope the best for our kids.
I pray every day for that.
I think one of the things that we could do is just put our arm around our kids, look them in the eye, and tell them how much we love them.
Absolutely.
I think it's missing in families today. I don't know why, but I just think it's missing, that we need to slow down enough to let our kids know that we really love them. The second thing I think we could do is just to tell them how much we love God and our desire for them to love God as well. And I don't think that we're doing a very good job of that. Because when I talk to parents in my church, and they talk about other kids that, other kids would lie, but not their child. Not their child would, and I was the superintendent of a Christian school, and always when parents would come in, they'd say, "Oh no, not my child. My child would never do those things." Do you hear that often?
All the time, and denial is the most dangerous thing for a child.
Denial. So it's time
Denial.
to wake up, isn't it?
Wake up. Wake
Would you
up.
join me? I want to pray as we close
Me
for our
too.
parents, and just a prayer for them, and I want to pray for the task force that they would do a great job in our community to reduce the number of children that become addicted to drugs and ruin their life. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank you for Simone and for the task force that's working so hard to eliminate substance abuse in our community. Lord, they're working with a lot of different organizations. I pray that that would continue. I pray that the task force would continue to grow, that parents would wake up and become parents and not just a child's friend. I pray, Lord, that there would be a great love relationship between parent and son or daughter in these homes. I just pray, Lord, that you would allow parents to be aware of these problems, that they would open their eyes and they would begin to do something about them. We give you praise for today's program, for Simone and for her work, and we thank you for her. Lord, we ask that you would continue to bless the work of the task force in Jesus' name. Amen. We thank you very much for joining us today on Hopeful Journey. Our guest has been Simone, and I'm Bill Fix, the senior pastor of Journey of Hope Community Church in Taylor, Michigan. Thanks for tuning in.